The human engineer Elias Ward never thought silence could feel so heavy. Yet here he was, standing on the bridge of the alien starship Renara, surrounded by beings so strange, so beautiful, that he often forgot how to breathe. The ship was enormous, a city of light and sound, its walls humming with soft energy, its corridors alive with flowing colors. It was not metal and wire like human ships. It was alive, grown, not built. The air carried a faint musical tone, as if the ship itself was singing a quiet song to the stars. Elias had been assigned to the Renara as a technical liaison, the only human among a crew of the Varelians, a race of luminous beings whose bodies seemed made of smooth glass and flowing light. They stood taller than humans, their movements slow and deliberate, almost like they were moving through water. Their faces glowed softly, their skin shifting shades with emotion, blue for calm, silver for thought, gold for amusement. To Elias, they were mesmerizing and terrifying at the same time. Most of the Varelians treated him kindly, though distantly. They spoke to him with calm politeness, but never with warmth. To them, he was something fragile, a warm blood, a creature of flesh and bone trying to live among light and energy. They admired his human curiosity, but pitied his limitations. He was slower, weaker, clumsier. Every time he touched their technology, it felt like it was judging him, as if it knew he didn't belong. But there was one Varelian who drew his eyes again and again, Commander Lirvana. She was in charge of navigation and battle strategy, a position of great respect among her people. She was graceful, confident, and always calm, the kind of presence that filled the room without saying a word. The first time Elias saw her, she was standing in front of the star map, her hands hovering above glowing streams of data. Her body was outlined by soft light, pulsing gently with every breath she took. He remembered thinking, she looks like a person made of sunrise. Her voice had a sound unlike anything he'd heard before, smooth, melodic, but powerful. When she gave orders, even the ship responded faster, as if it loved her voice. Elias couldn't help but admire her, even though he tried to keep his distance. He didn't want to be another foolish human staring at something he didn't understand. Still, every time she passed near him, his thoughts wandered. He noticed the way her light curved around her shoulders, the gentle rhythm of her glow when she spoke, the steady confidence in her every move. There was something alive about her, not just physically, but spiritually, and though he would never admit it aloud, she made him feel small, not because she looked down on him, but because she seemed so far above anything he could ever be. Lirvana, on the other hand, barely acknowledged him. She wasn't cruel or cold. She simply didn't seem to see him, like a queen who doesn't notice the dust on her throne or the wind around her crown. She was focused on her duty, on her people, on the stars. Elias understood that. He didn't expect attention. He just wanted to learn, to do his work quietly and make sure he didn't embarrass the humans who had sent him here. The first time they spoke directly, it was because of a system malfunction. The ship's lower sensor grid had overloaded during a solar storm, and Elias had been called to assist. When he arrived, Lirvana was already there, surrounded by floating panels of light, adjusting frequencies with movements that looked like dancing. She turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Human engineer," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "You are from the mechanical team?" Elias nodded quickly. "Yes, Commander. Elias Ward. I was sent to assist with the relay alignment." She gave a short nod, then gestured toward the damaged panel. "The human systems do not speak our language easily. You may need to translate manually." He set to work, hands slightly trembling. The console responded to touch differently, soft and alive as though it was breathing under his fingers. Every time he pressed the wrong area, it pulsed faintly in red, and he could almost feel it correcting him. Lirvana watched him work silently for a while. Her light shifted between pale blue and silver, a sign of thoughtfulness he had learned. Then she said softly, "You are delicate yet persistent. That is an unusual balance among your kind." He looked up, caught off guard. Thank you, Commander. I try not to break anything." For a second, she tilted her head and her eyes glowed brighter. Elias wondered if that was the Varelian version of amusement. Then, without warning, she turned back to her console and said, "The stars bend for persistence. Even fragile things may leave strong marks." Her words stayed in his mind long after the work was done. That night, Elias sat alone in his small sleeping pod, staring at the dim glow of the walls. He thought about her voice, calm yet filled with hidden weight. He thought about her hands, the way they shaped light as if she were painting with it. He thought about the way she had said fragile things may leave strong marks. No one had ever said something like that to him before. He didn't know what it meant to her. Maybe it was just a passing remark. Maybe she had already forgotten. But to him it was something different, something like kindness. From that night onward, Elias found it harder to focus when she was around. Every small interaction felt like a storm inside his chest. When she spoke to others, he found himself listening. When she passed near him, he felt the air change. He told himself it was just admiration, respect for someone far greater than him. But deep down, it was more than that. He didn't know it yet, but that quiet admiration would soon pull him into something he could never have imagined. Because one night, tired and unguarded, his heart would speak before his mind could stop it. And when it did, everything between them, human and Varelian, engineer and commander, Guy, would change forever. But for now, Elias just sat in the soft hum of the alien ship, looking out through the viewport at a billion distant stars, wondering why one of them glowed in the shape of her eyes. He whispered to himself, almost as if confessing to the void, "She's not just beautiful. She's something else, something I don't have words for." The ship answered only with silence. Yet deep within that silence, something had already begun to stir, a connection that neither man nor light could fully understand. And somewhere, in another part of the ship, Commander Lirvana paused for a moment in her work, her light flickering softly, as if she had felt the echo of a thought that wasn't hers. The next few days aboard the Renora passed like a dream wrapped in silence. The ship floated through the emptiness of space, gliding between suns and frozen moons, and inside its glowing halls, Elias continued his work like a ghost among stars. He spoke little, moved quietly, and tried to keep his human thoughts buried deep. He told himself that Commander Lirvana didn't notice him anymore, that their brief connection was a small flicker that had already faded. But he was wrong. Every time she entered the control chamber, his heart reacted before his brain could stop it. Her light touched the walls, the consoles, and even the air around him. It was impossible not to notice her, and so it happened. The moment that would change everything. It was the third cycle of the solar repair mission. The navigation core had been damaged by a radiation storm, and Lirvana called Elias to help restabilize the human interface unit that was now fused with Varelian systems. The chamber was dim, the lights pulsing in slow rhythm. The floor beneath them glowed faintly, like rippling water under glass. The air was warm, humming with the ship's living energy. Elias stood near the console, his hands moving carefully through the floating patterns of light. Beside him stood Lirvana, close enough for him to feel the faint warmth that radiated from her luminous skin. "Adjust the frequency matrix by 0.4, she said softly. "Careful, the system is sensitive now." Her voice was calm, but when she leaned forward to inspect the readings, the faint glow from her chest spilled onto the panel, brushing over his hands. Elias froze. He could see the patterns of light flowing under her translucent skin, moving like rivers of molten silver. Her movements were smooth, graceful, almost unreal. He tried to focus on his work. He tried not to look, but he couldn't help it. Every part of her seemed designed by something divine. The way her light curved along her shoulders, the soft shimmer at the base of her neck, the gentle pulse that echoed like a heartbeat made of stars. And then, in that single unguarded moment, his mind spoke what his mouth should have never said. Without realizing it, his translation link, the neural device connecting his emotions to her language, was still active. He thought, "She's beautiful. Her shape is perfect. I've never seen anything like her." The thought was private, meant for no one, but the translator pulsed once, catching his emotional signal, and the words were carried, unfiltered, straight into her mind. The chamber fell silent. The soft hum of the ship faded. The light around her dimmed. Elias froze, blood draining from his face as realization struck. His body went cold. His hands trembled over the console. Lirvana slowly turned toward him. Her glowing eyes were wide, not angry, but stunned. The light running through her form flickered unevenly, as if her body didn't know how to respond. Elias opened his mouth, but words died in his throat. His heart thundered against his ribs, loud enough he thought she might hear it. I didn't. It was an accident. I swear I didn't, he stammered, hands raised slightly as if he could somehow take the words back out of the air. She didn't speak. She just stared at him, light trembling softly along her shoulders. For a second he saw something in her expression. Not anger, not disgust, but confusion. A kind of deep, raw feeling she didn't understand. The silence stretched until it hurt. Finally, she stepped back, her light dimming even further. "I see," she said quietly. Her voice was unreadable, calm but not cold. "Your device transmits your emotions as sound. It seems it has no restraint." Elias felt shame burning through him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It wasn't supposed to. I didn't mean to disrespect you. I was tired and—" But she raised a hand, stopping him. "Enough," she said softly, not unkindly. "I do not understand human intentions fully, but you will remove your link before you enter command chambers again." He nodded quickly, unable to look at her. "Yes, Commander." Lirvana turned away. Her voice came one last time, distant now. "Continue your work, Engineer Ward. I will finish the recalibration myself." And then she walked out of the chamber. The door closed behind her with a soft hiss. Elias stood there for a long time, his chest tight, his heart breaking under the weight of shame. He had ruined everything. Whatever small respect she might have had for him was gone. He wasn't just a fragile human now. He was a fool who had crossed a line between worlds. He shut off the console, sat on the floor, and buried his face in his hands. The hum of the ship filled the silence again. But it felt colder now, distant, as if even the Renara itself had turned its light away from him. That night he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face in that moment. The surprise, the flicker of emotion, the quiet retreat. He replayed his words again and again, wishing he could erase them. "She's beautiful. Her shape is perfect. How could he have been so stupid?" He didn't even mean it the way it sounded. It wasn't lust or desire. It was awe. She was something beyond beauty, something sacred. He just didn't have words big enough to explain that. But now none of that mattered. His words were out there, burned into her mind by alien technology. He wanted to apologize again, properly this time. But every time he imagined facing her, his stomach turned. What would he even say? "Sorry, I accidentally confessed admiration for your body." He felt hopeless. The next morning when he entered the control deck, she wasn't there. Instead, another Varelian officer informed him that Commander Lirvana had reassigned his duties temporarily to the engineering sector. He was being distanced. Politely, officially, but clearly, and that hurt more than he expected. Days passed like shadows. Elias worked mechanically without speaking much. The crew treated him with cautious politeness. They knew something had happened, though none dared ask. He could feel their eyes sometimes, whispering questions he couldn't bear to answer. Each night he stared out the observation window, watching the endless stars drift by, wondering if she even thought of him anymore. He missed her, her calm presence, her melodic voice, even the way her light filled the room. The silence she left behind felt too big, too empty. Sometimes he swore he could still feel her nearby, a faint warmth brushing his mind, like a memory that refused to fade. And though he didn't know it yet, somewhere deep in the ship, Commander Lirvana was sitting alone in her chamber too, her hands resting over her glowing chest, replaying the strange, human words that had burned into her thoughts. She's beautiful. Her shape is perfect. She didn't understand why those words made her light tremble. She didn't understand why she couldn't forget them. And she certainly didn't understand why. For the first time in her long life among the stars, she felt seen, not as a commander, not as a Varelian, but simply as herself. The ship Renara drifted through silent space, glowing softly against the endless darkness. Inside life continued, engines humming, lights pulsing, voices echoing in soft alien tones. But for Elias Ward, the human engineer, the days had turned cold and colorless. He had never realized how much her presence had filled the ship until it was gone. Commander Lirvana no longer appeared at the workstations he used to assist with. She no longer briefed him personally or shared quiet remarks about the ship's systems. Every instruction now came through a distant officer, relayed in polite, formal messages that held no warmth. It was as if she had drawn a line, a bright, painful boundary, and on the other side of it he no longer existed. The distance between them was not made of space. It was made of silence. Elias tried to keep his mind on work. He told himself he deserved this. He had embarrassed her, the most respected Varelian commander on the ship, with his foolish, careless words. He had crossed a boundary that no translator, no human apology could undo, but still, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He remembered her voice like music, calm, commanding but gentle when she wanted it to be. He remembered the way her light shimmered when she spoke, and how her eyes had softened once when she'd told him that fragile things can leave strong marks. Now, even thinking about those moments hurt. The engineering bay felt empty without her presence. The air seemed colder, the lights dimmer. The other Varelians, sensing the tension, kept their distance too. No one asked him about her, though a few exchanged glances that said they knew something had happened. He caught whispers once or twice, his name spoken quietly among glowing faces. Humans feel too much, one had said softly. They speak without control. Another replied. He didn't argue. They were right. Humans did feel too much. That was both their gift and their curse. Every night Elias sat by the large observation window in his quarters, staring at the vast sea of stars. He thought about Earth, about the blue oceans, the sunlight through trees, the sound of rain on glass. Things that the Varelians would never truly understand. But then he thought about her. Her glow, her grace, her quiet strength. And he realized he no longer felt like he belonged only to Earth. Part of him now lived among the stars. And it was tied to her. He tried once to see her again. It was a week after the incident. The ship was approaching a nebula field, and he knew she would be in the navigation chamber overseeing the course alignment. He waited until his shift ended, then walked there, rehearsing his words in his head. He wasn't going to say anything foolish. He just wanted to apologize properly, on face-to-face. When he reached the chamber, the door recognized his presence and slid open with a soft sigh. The room inside was dim, lit by the glow of star maps stretching across the ceiling. Lirvana stood at the center, surrounded by shimmering light patterns, her form reflecting the colors of the nebula outside. For a moment, Elias just stood there, breath caught in his throat. She looked unreal, like a being made entirely of light and sorrow. He opened his mouth to speak. "Commander," but she turned her head slightly, not meeting his eyes. "Engineer Ward," she said, her voice formal and distant. "You are not assigned here. Please return to your sector." Her words struck harder than any blade. "I just wanted to apologize," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to—" "There is nothing to apologize for," she interrupted, still not looking at him. "The incident is behind us. You have your duties. I have mine." Her tone was polite, but the distance in her voice felt like a wall of ice. Elias hesitated, his throat tight. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I never wanted to disrespect you. What I thought—" It wasn't about enough. The single word stopped him cold. Lirvana finally turned to face him. Her eyes were glowing faintly, but her expression was unreadable, calm but heavy. "Humans speak with emotion even when silence would protect them," she said softly. "I do not wish to feel your guilt." "Let it rest," Elias nodded slowly. "Understood, Commander." He turned to leave. But just before the door closed behind him, he heard her voice again, lower this time, almost like a whisper. "Do not think that I am angry," she said. "I am uncertain. That is all." The door shut. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the glowing floor beneath his feet. That one word, uncertain, echoed in his mind. It wasn't rejection, but it wasn't forgiveness either. It was something in between, something fragile and unfinished, like a melody that hadn't found its end. Days turned into weeks. The ship continued its long voyage across the edge of known space, and Elias buried himself in his work. He repaired circuits, cleaned filters, checked energy lines, anything to keep his hands busy and his heart quiet. But every now and then, when he caught the faint echo of her voice through the ship's intercom, his chest tightened. He started to notice small things he hadn't before, like how her orders sounded calmer now, softer, almost hesitant when she spoke near his section. Once he thought he saw her reflection in the mirrored glass outside the engineering hall, standing still, as if watching him work from a distance. But when he turned, no one was there. Sometimes he wondered if she was avoiding him because she was angry, or because she didn't understand what she felt. He couldn't blame her. He didn't understand it either. There was something strange about the connection between them. It wasn't love, not yet. It was something purer, deeper, a recognition. As if for one small second, two completely different beings had seen each other without walls. And now neither could forget that moment, no matter how much they tried. But space is wide and silence can grow like a storm. Elias stopped expecting her messages. He worked, he ate, he slept, and every night, before sleep, he whispered to the stars, "I'm sorry." He didn't know if she could hear him, but sometimes the ship's lights flickered softly in reply, like a heartbeat answering far away. And deep within the Rhaenyra, in her private chamber, Commander Lirvana sat alone before a pool of living light, a device that resonated with thought. She replayed his accidental words again, not through sound, but through feeling. She's beautiful. Her shape is perfect. She touched her hand to her chest where her glow pulsed gently. Humans saw beauty in shapes, but what did he see in hers? She wasn't made of flesh or form. She was light and energy, ever-changing, never fixed. No one had ever described her that way before. No one had ever looked at her with such awe. It frightened her, but it also warmed her. She whispered into the quiet, "Why does this fragile human make my light tremble?" The ship gave no answer. Only the stars outside seemed to shimmer brighter, as if listening. And though they were apart, the unseen thread between them remained, soft, invisible, but unbroken. The Rhaenyra drifted silently through the black sea of stars. Weeks had passed since Elias Ward's mistake, that single unguarded thought that had broken the fragile peace between him and Commander Lirvana. The ship was calm, but his heart was not. The distance between them had grown wider, and every day it felt heavier. Elias went through his duties like a machine. He worked in silence, fixed what needed fixing, and answered questions with short, tired replies. The other crew members had stopped whispering about him, but he could still feel their quiet judgment. To them, he was a strange human who had said something foolish to their commander, but beneath all that shame, something else lived inside him, longing. Not for love, but for connection. He missed her voice, her quiet presence, her calm light that used to make the cold halls feel alive. He wanted to explain himself properly, not with excuses, but with truth. He wanted to tell her what he had really meant, that his words weren't born from desire, but from awe, that he hadn't been thinking about her shape as something physical, but as something alive. The beauty of her form had reminded him of what humans called grace, the harmony of being, the living poetry of existence. But how could he explain that to someone who had never been human? For days he kept searching for the right moment, but she never gave him one. Then one night, while the ship cruised quietly through the light of a distant nebula, Elias found her. He had gone to the observation deck to clear his mind, a vast glass dome where the stars looked close enough to touch. But she was already there, standing near the transparent wall, her form glowing softly against the endless darkness. The colors of the nebula reflected on her skin, making her look like a living painting, shades of blue, gold, and silver dancing across her body. Elias froze. He thought about turning away, about walking out before she noticed him. But before he could move, she spoke. "Engineer Ward," she said quietly without turning, "you should rest. It is late for your kind." Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but distant, like the space between two galaxies. Elias took a breath and stepped closer. "I couldn't sleep," he said softly. "The stars are too loud tonight." That made her turn. Her eyes glowed faintly, curious. "Too loud?" He nodded, giving a small, nervous smile. Humans have a strange way of saying things. When the mind is noisy, we say the stars are loud. It just means, I'm thinking too much. Lirvana's light dimmed slightly, a Varelian gesture that meant understanding. She looked away again, her gaze lost in the swirling lights of the nebula. "You think too much, Elias Ward. That is your nature." He took another step forward. "Maybe, But there's something I've been thinking about for too long. Something I need to say. She didn't move. If it is about that night, she said softly, you do not need to speak of it. It was a miscommunication. We can leave it behind. I can't, he said quickly, because I didn't explain what I meant. You think I saw you the way a man sees a woman, but it wasn't like that. When I said those words, it wasn't about wanting. It was about wonder. Her head turned slightly toward him, though her expression didn't change. He took a deep breath and continued. When I looked at you, I saw something beyond what humans have. The way your light moves, the way you carry yourself. It felt like watching life itself take shape. It was beautiful, and I said it without thinking because it was the truth. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. He paused, struggling for words. You made me remember what beauty really means. Lirvana stood still for a long moment, her glow flickering faintly. The silence stretched so long that Elias began to regret coming. Finally, she spoke. You humans always use emotions as language, she said softly. You wrap truth in feeling until even you cannot tell them apart. Elias smiled sadly. That's true. We feel before we think. Maybe that's our weakness. Or your strength, she replied quietly. He blinked, surprised by her tone. It wasn't cold this time. It was soft, almost thoughtful. She turned fully to face him now, and the faint light of the stars reflected in her silver eyes. When your words reached me that night, I did not understand them, she said. Among my people, we do not think of beauty in that way. We do not see ourselves as shapes but as patterns of energy, flowing, changing, never fixed. But when your mind touched mine, I felt something warm. I did not know what it was. Elias swallowed hard. You felt what we call emotion, he said quietly. It's what makes us human. Her light pulsed brighter like a slow heartbeat. It was not unpleasant, she admitted. It frightened me because it was unfamiliar. But it was alive, Elias smiled faintly. That's what it means to feel. It's messy. It scares us too. But it's also what makes life worth living. Lirvana was silent again, watching him closely. Your kind speaks of love and awe as if they are one, she murmured. I do not know which one you meant that night. He met her gaze honestly. Maybe both. Maybe something in between. I just know I saw something in you that I'll never forget. Her glow softened. And now? She asked quietly. Do you still see it? Elias looked at her. Really looked. And felt his heart tighten. Yes, he whispered. More than ever. For a moment neither spoke. The hum of the ship faded, leaving only the quiet breath of the stars. Then slowly Lirvana took a step closer. The faint warmth of her light brushed against his skin, sending a gentle shiver through him. You humans are strange, she said softly. You speak of beauty as if it can heal what is broken. Sometimes it can, Elias replied. Sometimes beauty is just another way to say hope. Lirvana tilted her head slightly, her eyes glowing brighter. Hope, she repeated as if testing the word. Your world must be full of pain if you need such things. Elias smiled weakly. It is, but we survive because of them. Because sometimes, something beautiful reminds us why we keep going. The light around her flickered again, and for a moment he thought he saw her smile, not with her lips, but with the soft warmth in her glow. I do not know if I can understand your emotions fully, she said finally, but I no longer wish to avoid them. Perhaps they are not as fragile as I thought. Elias exhaled, feeling something heavy lift from his chest. Thank you, he whispered. For letting me say this, she nodded slowly. And thank you, Elias Ward, for reminding me that even light can be seen in new ways. They stood together in silence, looking out at the vast, glowing nebula before them. The stars shimmered like living fire, and for the first time in weeks, Elias felt warmth spreading through his chest again, not from her light, but from something deeper. Two beings, one of flesh and one of light, stood side by side, no longer separated by shame or misunderstanding, but connected by something neither of them fully understood. It wasn't love yet, but it was the beginning of something powerful, a bridge between hearts that had no reason to meet and yet somehow did. And as they watched the stars together, the distance between them began to fade. One heartbeat at a time. Days passed after that quiet meeting on the observation deck. Something had changed between Elias Ward and Commander Lirvana. something delicate, unseen, yet deeply felt. They did not speak much, but when their eyes met, there was no longer distance. There was understanding, even warmth. The crew noticed too. The whispers stopped, replaced by silence and a hint of curiosity. The human engineer and the alien commander, two souls who had clashed through misunderstanding, now moved in harmony. But inside Lirvana, something new was happening. The Varelian race had no concept of emotion as humans knew it. They communicated through thought waves, calm, precise, without confusion. But since that night, since the moment she had felt Elias's strange warmth touch her mind, she began to sense changes in herself. Her light shifted more often, pulsing in unpredictable rhythms. Her thoughts wandered. She found herself seeking his presence, listening for his voice. It frightened her. At first, she believed it was contamination, a kind of mental interference caused by proximity to a human mind. But the feeling didn't fade. Instead, it grew stronger. And one evening, while working on the navigation core, she felt it again. Elias was nearby, repairing a damaged relay. His hands moved with focus and care. But his face carried that soft, lost expression she had seen before, like a man living halfway between guilt and wonder. Without thinking, she spoke. "Elias Ward," she said softly. "You are calm today?" He looked up, a little surprised, then smiled. "Trying to be," he said. "It helps the machines trust me." Her head tilted. "Machines do not trust." "They do," he replied. "At least mine do. If you rush or lose patience, they fight back." She considered that, watching his steady hands. "That is very human." He grinned faintly. "I'll take that as a compliment." For a moment, they both worked in silence. The soft hum of energy filled the air, and the glowing panels reflected in Lirvana's silver eyes. Then she spoke again, her tone quieter this time. "Elias," she said without her usual title of command. "May I ask you something?" He stopped, looking up at her carefully. "Of course." "When you said those words about my form," she began slowly, her voice almost hesitant, "you spoke as if you saw more than light and motion. You said it was beautiful. You said it made you feel. But when I tried to understand it, I found something else inside me, a reaction I cannot explain. Since that night, I have felt things that no Varelian has ever described." Elias set down his tool carefully, sensing the weight in her voice. "What kind of things?" She looked at him for a long time, the light on her skin flickering softly like candle flame. "When I am near you, my core pulses faster. When I'm not, my thoughts drift toward you without permission. When you speak, I feel warmth. When you suffer, I feel pain." Her words came slow, almost trembling. "I believe your human emotion has infected me." Elias felt his chest tighten. "It's not an infection," he said gently. "It's just connection." "Connection?" she repeated softly. He nodded. "Yes, it means our minds, our hearts, whatever we are, have reached each other somehow. Maybe it's not something either of us planned, but it's not wrong." Lirvana took a step closer. The air around her shimmered faintly. "Among my people," she said, "there is no word for this. We do not attach. We exist together, but not for one another. We are one species, one thought. But you," her voice grew quiet, almost like a whisper. "You are separate, and yet you care. You feel alone, and still you reach out." Elias looked into her glowing eyes and said softly, "Because without connection, we fade. Humans need it like air. It's what keeps us alive." Her light dimmed for a moment, not in sadness, but in deep thought. "Then perhaps," she said slowly, "I am learning what it means to live." Elias couldn't breathe for a moment. There was something in her tone, raw and beautiful, like a star taking its first breath. He stepped closer, careful, gentle. "Lirvana," he said quietly, "if what you feel scares you, it's okay. Feeling something new always does. But don't run from it." Her eyes flickered. "I am not running. I am transforming." Before he could ask, she raised one hand. The air around them shimmered like water, and suddenly he felt her thoughts touching his. Not like before, not cold or distant, but warm and alive. He saw flashes, her memories, her people, her world made of crystal skies and endless light. He saw what beauty meant to her kind, patterns of energy, endless harmony, perfection without emotion. But now in that harmony a new spark existed, his presence, his humanness, like color blooming in white light. When the vision faded, she was standing closer than ever. The soft glow of her form brushed against his chest. "Do you see now?" she whispered. "Your words changed something inside me. You gave me chaos, and in it I found feeling. I thought it would destroy me, but it did not. It made me real." Elias's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Lirvana continued, her voice trembling like a current of wind. "We thought humans were fragile, driven by instincts, ruled by emotion. But now I see. You are strong because of it. Because you let yourselves feel even when it hurts. That is your power." Her light pulsed brighter, as if her emotions were finally alive inside her. "And now, because of you, I feel too," Elias finally whispered. "Then I'm glad I said what I did." Her eyes glowed softly. "Even if it broke our peace?" "Especially because it did," he said. "Sometimes the only way to understand someone is to break what's safe." Lirvana tilted her head, studying him with a strange tenderness. "You are reckless," she said, "but I think I understand why." For a moment, the silence between them was heavy but peaceful. Two beings, one of flesh, one of light, sharing the same small piece of space bound by something neither science nor language could define. Finally, she whispered, "Elias Ward. If what I feel continues, I do not know what will happen. The Varelian mind is not built for emotion." "Then maybe," he said softly, "you're becoming something new." Her glow warmed, like sunrise breaking through glass. "And if I am?" "Then you're not alone," he said, meeting her eyes. She looked at him for a long time, and then slowly she raised her hand. Light shimmered around her fingers as she reached out and placed her palm against his chest. Elias gasped. Her touch wasn't cold this time. It was alive. He could feel her pulse, not like a heartbeat but like a song, resonating with his own. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "Your shape," she whispered, echoing his first words, "is strange to me. Soft, imperfect, fragile. But when I touch you, I understand what you meant that night. It is not about shape. It is about life, about the fire that refuses to die." Elias felt tears burning his eyes. He covered her hand gently with his own. "That's humanity," he said. "We burn even when we break." Her light shimmered softly, almost like a smile. "Then maybe," she whispered, "I am human too." And for the first time in her life, Commander Lirvana, the being of light and reason, felt. Not through logic, not through command, but through the heartbeat of a human who had once spoken too honestly and changed the course of two worlds forever. The Ren-Ara, the pride of the Varelian fleet, had always been a quiet vessel, cold, precise, efficient. Every system responded to logic and pattern, the way Varelians preferred. But now subtle things began to shift. The light panels that once shone with steady rhythm started to pulse softly, like heartbeats. The corridors felt warmer. The hum of the core vibrated with a new tone, faint, almost musical. The crew whispered of anomalies, but none dared to confront their commander directly. Only one being aboard knew what was truly happening. Elias Ward. He had noticed the changes too. When Lirvana walked past, the light seemed to follow her. The walls themselves seemed to listen when she spoke. And her glow, it wasn't the same silver shimmer it used to be. Now it had color. Sometimes gold, sometimes pale blue, sometimes a gentle pink that made Elias's chest ache in ways he couldn't explain. He knew it wasn't normal. He also knew she was struggling to understand it. One night he found her standing in the central nexus, surrounded by floating data streams. Her figure was bathed in light, but her posture was tense, hands trembling slightly, her glow flickering like candlelight in wind. "Commander?" Elias said softly, her head turned slowly. "Elias Ward, you should not be here. The systems are unstable." He stepped closer, ignoring the warning. "What's happening?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "It is me," she said. "The ship is linked to my neural field. My emotions. They are affecting it." He frowned. "Affecting how?" She looked down at her hands, light rippling across her skin. The Renera was built to respond to logic waves, calm, balanced thoughts. But my mind is no longer calm. Since I began to feel, the ship responds in ways it should not. Temperature shifts. Lights pulse. Energy signatures fluctuate. The crew does not understand what is happening, and I fear they are beginning to fear me. Elias took another step forward. Lirvana, this isn't wrong. It's just new. You're changing, that's all. Her voice trembled. My kind does not change. We evolve slowly by collective choice. This... She pressed her palm against her chest where her light pulsed wildly. This is chaos. Elias gently placed a hand on the console beside her. Then maybe chaos isn't always bad. She looked at him sharply. You say that because your kind thrives on it. But for mine, chaos means collapse. He hesitated, searching for words. Maybe that's why we met. Maybe you needed to see that not all chaos destroys him. Some chaos creates. She stared at him in silence for a long time. Her light dimmed, then brightened again, flickering with emotion. You speak as if this is destiny. Maybe it is, he said quietly. Or maybe it's just us. The following days were tense. The Varelian crew began to notice more than just strange lights. Systems would activate without command. The ship's communication field started to emit faint sounds, soft vibrations that resembled music. It was beautiful, haunting, and utterly alien to them. To humans, it would sound like emotion given voice. To Varelians, it was terrifying. Whispers began to spread through the crew. The commander is corrupted. Her mind is fractured. The human infected her thoughts. Lirvana heard them all. She could hear every whisper, every fearful thought through the neural net of the ship. Each one felt like a knife of light through her core, and yet, a part of her didn't want to go back. Every pulse of feeling, every strange warm sensation when Elias was near, made her feel alive. For the first time, she understood what her people had been missing all along. One night, when the tension reached its peak, the senior officers called an emergency council. Elias wasn't allowed, but he could hear raised voices echoing down the corridor. The commander's energy field is unstable, one said. The human must be removed. Another shouted. If her mind collapses, the Renara will fall with it. Elias waited outside the chamber, fists clenched, heart pounding. Then the door opened, and Lirvana stepped out, her light pale and trembling. They stared at each other for a long moment before she said softly, They wish to disconnect me from the ship. His eyes widened. Disconnect? That could kill you, she nodded faintly. Perhaps. But they fear what I am becoming. They see me as a danger. They say my connection to you has infected our systems. They call it a human resonance. Elias's jaw tightened. You're not sick. You're awakening. Her eyes flickered. They do not see it that way. To them, emotion is madness. He stepped closer. Then show them it isn't. Show them what it means to feel. Lirvana's voice broke. Elias, if I lose control again, the ship could implode. My energy field is linked to every circuit. I do not know if I can contain it. He reached for her hand, hesitant, gentle. Then I'll help you control it. You're not alone anymore. Her hand trembled in his. You believe you can steady a being of light? He smiled faintly. I don't know, but I'll try. For a moment she didn't move. Then slowly she closed her glowing fingers around his. The connection flared to life. Energy hummed in the air, and for a heartbeat the entire ship stilled. The hum, the lights, the movement. Everything froze as if listening, and then the music returned. But this time it wasn't random. It was calm, beautiful. The pulses of light moved in rhythm with their joined hands, soft waves of color flowing through the walls, echoing through the halls like a heartbeat. The crew stopped in their tracks, staring as the once unstable ship now pulsed with gentle, harmonic light. Lirvana's voice trembled with awe. Elias, it listens to us, he smiled. No, it listens to you because you're not chaos anymore. Your balance, tears, glowing drops of light, shimmered along her face. This is emotion, she whispered. This is what you feel every day. He nodded softly. Every day. For a long moment they stood there, human and alien, their connection radiating through the ship. The crew, once afraid, could only watch in stunned silence as their commander's light danced across the walls, painting the cold corridors with warmth. Finally, one of the officers whispered, She's stabilizing. She's in control. Lirvana turned to Elias, her voice trembling. You gave me this, Elias Ward. You gave me life beyond logic. He shook his head. You always had it. You just needed to feel it. Her glow brightened and she took a deep breath. Then I will not let them take it from me. The words carried power, not just sound but energy. It flowed through the entire ship, echoing in the hearts and minds of every Varelian aboard. And for the first time in their long, cold history, the Varelians felt something new: emotion, warmth, hope. That night, when the ship finally settled, Lirvana stood beside Elias in silence. The stars glowed outside the window, and her light reflected softly against his skin. "Your people fear what they don't understand," he said quietly. "Ours do too." "Then maybe," she whispered, "we can teach them together." He smiled. "Together?" She looked at him, eyes bright, voice soft. "Yes, together." And as they stood beneath the endless stars, the Renara glowed like a living heart in the dark, a symbol of what happens when logic meets emotion, and two worlds finally begin to feel. The Renara drifted in silent space, glowing softly with golden light. Once a ship of logic and precision, it now breathed like a living being. Its core pulsed in rhythm with two hearts, one human, one alien, but peace never lasts long. 3 days after the awakening, a transmission came from the Varelian High Council, the oldest and most powerful minds of Lirvana's people. Their cold, pale faces appeared on the central screen, and their voices echoed through the chamber like a frozen wind. "Commander Lirvana," the head counselor said, "your energy signature has deviated beyond acceptable parameters. Your connection to the human is an infection of logic. You will submit to containment." Lirvana stood still, her light steady but dim. She could feel their disappointment through the psychic link, a heavy, suffocating wave of judgment. "I have not malfunctioned," she said calmly. "I have evolved." The council's light flickered with agitation. "You speak of emotion, an unstable human weakness. Disconnect from the human immediately, or we will take control of your vessel." Elias stood beside her, fists clenched. "You can't just erase what she's become," he shouted. "She's alive." The council's collective gaze turned toward him. "Human interference is the cause of this corruption. Your influence will be neutralized." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in silence. Lirvana turned to Elias, her expression unreadable. "They are coming," she said softly. "An enforcement fleet. They will arrive within hours." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "Then we need to run." She shook her head slowly. "There is nowhere to run. They can track me through my neural field. The only way to save the ship is to disconnect me from it." His voice trembled. "That'll kill you." "Yes," she said simply. "But my people will be safe." "You will be safe." Elias stepped forward, shaking his head. "No. You don't get to sacrifice yourself because they're afraid. You taught them something. You showed them what emotion can be. You can't just—" Her voice cut through his. "Elias Ward," she said gently, "I am not afraid of ending. I'm afraid of undoing what we began." Her light dimmed as she turned away. "For the first time, I feel purpose beyond duty. You gave that to me." He reached for her hand. "Then don't let them take it. Fight for it." Her glow flickered uncertainly. "Fight the council? That is rebellion. My kind has never fought one another." "Then maybe it's time," he said softly. "Every great change starts with someone who refuses to obey." She looked at him, really looked, and for a long time, neither spoke. Then very quietly she whispered, "If I resist them, I will become other. They will no longer call me Varelian." Elias's voice broke. "Then be something new. Be Lirvana." Hours later, the sky around the Renara darkened with silver ships, cold, beautiful, and deadly. The Varelian fleet had arrived. Inside, alarms echoed softly. The crew moved in panic, unsure whether to fight or surrender. Lirvana stood in the center of the command bridge, her light blazing bright like a living sun. Elias stood beside her. "What's the plan?" She turned to him, eyes glowing with calm fire. "We will show them." "Show them what?" "That emotion is not chaos," she said. "That connection is strength." The High Council's voice filled the comms again, cold and commanding. "Commander Lirvana, surrender control of your ship immediately. Your emotional contamination cannot be allowed to spread." Lirvana stepped forward, lifting her hand toward the viewing screen. "I will not surrender," she said softly, "but I will let you see." The light around her body expanded, waves of energy rippling outward like a sunrise. The ship responded instantly. Every wall, every wire, every circuit glowed with life. The Renara opened its psychic channel, not as a weapon, but as a voice. And for the first time in Verilian history, emotion spread through their shared network. They felt what she felt. They saw through her eyes, the human standing beside her, fragile but full of fire. They felt his heartbeat, his fear, his stubborn love. They felt her feelings, confusion, wonder, warmth, hope. The council's cold lights flickered violently. "What is this?" one of them gasped. "This," Lirvana whispered, "is what we have forgotten." The ships outside began to waver, their lights pulsing irregularly. Across the fleet, Verelian minds, ancient, logical, cold, were suddenly touched by something warm and unknown. They felt humanity. Not through words, not through translation, but through her. Elias could feel it too. His mind flooded with images, endless fields of light, Verelian worlds stretching across the stars, and all of them flickering with new color. Lirvana stood tall in the center of it all, her glow reaching its brightest point. "I am not broken," she declared. "I am alive, and I will not let fear silence what I have become." The council's presence faltered. One by one, their light patterns broke apart, not in anger, but in silence. Some glowed brighter, almost trembling as if struggling to understand what they were feeling. And then slowly one of the counselors bowed their head. "Commander, we feel it too." The voice was soft, uncertain. Others began to follow. The fleet outside dimmed, then steadied, their weapons powered down. Lirvana's light shimmered with tears. She turned toward Elias, her voice breaking. "They understand," he smiled faintly, eyes wet. "Of course they do. How could they not?" For a moment, the entire ship was silent. The war that never began ended with a single act of feeling. Lirvana's energy began to fade, her form flickering softly. Elias caught her before she fell. "Hey, stay with me," he whispered. Her voice was faint, almost a breath of light. "The link, it took everything. My energy is dispersing."